A man you've heard from time to time on our late-night talk shows, an economist, a wealth advisor, and a Brexiteer is Jonathan Davis, who joins us. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Duncan.
Good to have you on again, sir. What do you make of Nigel Farage's remarks from earlier?
I did actually watch the clip on that Channel 5 show when it was posted on Twitter. He was quite clear. He said, I think we ought to have a second referendum. I was absolutely shocked. I fell off my seat, as it were. And then I thought about it, and I thought it's political genius. It totally rips the rug away from the Bremoners, as we call them, who have been calling for a second referendum to put blockages into the Brexit decision and so on. I disagree with it. I think it's a stuff of nonsense. I think he's lost his mind because we had the vote.
Yeah.
And all the politicians before the vote, this is the most clear thing in the world. They said, we will implement your decision. That is a fact. And the fact that over the last year and a half, they've done everything but implement the decision, and it looks as if Brexit is going to take another couple of years after 2019. Well, it just shows that the politicians aren't to be trusted, so what's new? But Nigel Farage, I think he's totally wrong, but it's political genius.
All right, I'm a little bit confused. He's wrong, but it's also political genius.
Well, you see, I'm not a politician. I want to leave the EU. He's a politician. Well, he says he's not any longer, but that's what we've been doing for 20-odd years. I don't have the mindset of a salaried politician paid for by the state, by the public.
Understood. So, Jonathan, is he just playing politics here, then? Is that your assessment?
I think his intention is to pull the rug away from the Remainers. Therefore, yes, he's playing politics, and I'll bet he totally regrets spewing it out at 9 o'clock this morning.
He has taken to Twitter to say it's the last thing I've ever wanted, but I fear it might be forced upon us. We have to be prepared. Let's look at that idea. Let's look at that idea. The idea that the so-called political elite, the people maybe you alluded to, who take a salary for being a politician, ultimately will not implement Brexit, so there needs to be something else in place to really hammer home the message.
That will be the argument, and that is in effect the argument. The other corresponding argument is once Parliament decides on what Brexit will look like, then the people should have a vote on it. Well, again, I go back to my original statement. We will implement your decision. The decision was very clearly, we are to leave the EU. Parliament was not to decide. We, the people, have already decided, and that's how it was originally set up. But he's right in that they are desperately trying to get another referendum, and he's also right. They may succeed. We may have another referendum. May being the operative word, because she's in charge, and she might make it happen, which would be disastrous as far as I'm concerned, in the sense that it would be anti-democratic, because we've already had the vote.
All right, well, two things. First of all, Downing Street have said there will not be a second referendum. They've been very clear on that tonight. But why would it be undemocratic or anti-democratic to have a second referendum? Why would that be the case? Isn't it just another opportunity for people to have their say? And there seems to be a view here, from Farage, which is if we were to have a second one, there would be a bigger Leave vote.
It would be anti-democratic, undemocratic, because we already had the vote. That, I repeat again, the politicians, the media, Uncle Tom Cobley said, we will implement your decision. We've seen this for the last 10 years from anything to do with supporting the EU. When a country has a vote and it goes against the EU goes in there, turns the screws, and they have another vote, and isn't it funny, it goes for the EU. And if you leave it to the Remainers, they will have as many votes as they possibly can until they get the quote right unquote answer. We had the answer whether you like it or not. However, having said all that, based upon what I see in the mood of the people, if we do have a second referendum, it'll be 60% leave, 40% remain.
Okay, and why do you think that figure would increase? What are you picking up on the mood of the people that makes you, well, conclude that the figure, the leave figure, would be around the 60% mark as opposed to the 52% mark?
At the time in the spring and early summer of 2016, at the height of the fervour of Brexit, you had the IMF, the World Bank, the Bank of England, the Treasury, the media, the BBC, Channel 4, you name it, saying if we vote to leave the EU, we can switch the lights out because the UK is toast. They've all been proved wrong. And they will, and the people have finally got it into their heads that the people, the organisations that in effect we all look up to, they were either merely incorrect, which I think would be hugely coincidental that every single one of them was merely incorrect, or it was actually a conspiracy, it was corrupt to get us to do something which they wanted us to do, but actually was not necessarily in the people's interest. So the people have got that in their heads, that the elite are against them, and they will kick the elite again, just like they did in June. It would have been a wider vote for leave in June 16 had you not had that fervour from the Remain side.
Jonathan, as always, good to get your thoughts on the air. Jonathan Davis, economist, wealth advisor, and Brexiteer of great renown.